I'm just going to set the recording. Really happy to see you today and looking forward to our call with Eileen. So first, I'll turn it to Perry to lead us in a sort of a little go round so we can greet each other and just ground ourselves a little bit, get to know each other.
Thank
so over
you.
to you, Perry.
Thank you, Nanette, and welcome everybody once again. We're going to have a brief go round, just kind of say your name and where you are at the moment and what you might be looking at, etc., etc. I'll start. I'll show you how it's done. My name is Perry Sedman. I'm sitting in my office in Miami Beach, looking out over Biscayne Bay and the boats, etc. And it's kind of overcast today, but it is not cold. So, Stuart, why don't we go to you?
Oh yeah, my Stu Webb in Minneapolis. Of course it's cold here, but the sun is halfway shining, and we're having a good time, and we're looking forward to our collaborative law gathering. In Thursday, we get together for bonding overnight. 150 of us in collaborative law, and I always talk up PISLAP because it fits so well with what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Ken, why don't we swing it to you?
Thank you. Sorry, Perry, for my delay. I'm in the west coast of Florida. Perry, I wish I was closer to you so that I could meet you and hang out in person, which would be an honor. I'm over in Sarasota, but I'm from the New York area where I've been pleased to meet Nanette and others at PISLAP meetings. So it's just an honor to be here with all of you. And it is 75 degrees and fairly beautiful here in Florida. So you are all welcome to come down and visit. And you all got to hang out here in Sarasota, or we'll go over and see Perry on the East Coast. And with that, Kim, if we're picking people, Kim, would you like to check in? It's great to see you, Kim.
Sure, good to see you, Ken, and everybody.
Hey.
I'm Kim Wright. I am in Burlington, North Carolina, where it's like in the 40s, 50s, and cloudy today, so it feels very wintry and cozy in my office here. And did I answer everything?
Yeah, I think you did. I think you did.
Okay, so I can pop it over to Duncan.
Good.
Well, as I was saying to Eileen, I'm on Cape Ann and it is 35 degrees and misty and drizzly here. But I can see the Inner Harbor from my condo, which is always a treat, even if it's chilly and rainy out there.
Okay. Lisa, good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I am in Boston, where it is drizzling and cold. So I am feeling winter full on.
Welcome, welcome. Bruce, check in,
Hi.
please.
I'm Bruce Peterson. I'm in my home office in Minneapolis, about 4 or 5 miles from Stu Webb, so the weather's the same, unfortunately. And Stu, I wanted to say I attended one of your collaborative law events a few years ago, and Lisa said, "Man, those collaborative law people dance like crazy. So you take it easy on your back on Thursday, will you?"
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
trying to hold it down.
Swinging down to Craig.
Hi, I'm Craig Neal, and along with Bruce and Stu, I'm in the Minneapolis area. And it's a cold winter day here. So I'll pass it on to Molly.
Hi everyone, my name is Molly Chowdhury. I'm a law student here in San Diego, so it's quite warm where I am. I'm sorry to everyone who is enduring cold weather at the moment, but I'm really happy to be here.
Good to have you. It's good to have you. Donna, I believe you're next, or is it Donna? Oh,
Sorry, it's Donna. Thank you. I'm in Portland, Oregon. It's probably in the 40s. It's sunny. It's a beautiful day. I'm looking at tall pine trees.
Can I eat my sandwich in here while I listen?
What?
Can I eat my sandwich in here while I listen?
no, do not eat your sandwich right now. Thank you.
Wait a minute,
Uh,
that was on this. Sorry, folks.
Kara, why don't you join us and tell us what's going on? Where are you?
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I am walking the dog, which I thought would be good to do, but it's rainy a little bit and there's a lawn service as I'm passing by. So it's nice to be here with you. It's a little drizzly, but it's not too cold in New Jersey, so the puppy needed to get out.
Excellent. Welcome aboard. Marquita, you're next.
Good morning, everybody. What would you like to know? I am here.
Your name, where you are, what you might be looking at, and everybody seems to be giving a weather forecast or something like that.
Well, Marquita Campbell, and I'm in Palmdale, California. What am I looking at? Let's see. What am I looking at? Actually, looking out the window right now. Actually, the window that I'm looking at right now, right in front of that window says "Forgiveness is sexy."
Very good.
I've got a plaque from Eileen. Actually, it was a T-shirt from Eileen that I had framed, and that's what I'm looking at right now. It says "Forgiveness is sexy," and that's in front of a window with lots of with a beautiful green bush right in front of it and a big tree behind it. So that's what I'm doing right now. So yes.
Sounds nice. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah,
Thank
pretty
you.
beautiful yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind.
Kim, you're next.
Hi, it just popped on. I lost track of time. I'm in my art studio in West Oakland. There's noisy people outside striping the parking lot. I have like a packed day with tons of stuff to juggle, and I'm just trying to keep it all in the air.
Excellent. Glad to have you. Anne, you're next.
Hi, I'm in Philadelphia in my home office, and it is 50 or so and cool and sort of misty, cloudy. And I appreciated Kim describing this as cozy. I hadn't thought of this as cozy, but I'm going to adopt that attitude.
Welcome to this cozy gathering. Nanette, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and go through the steps
Sure.
here, and so you can introduce our speaker.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Nanette Shore. I'm in New York City in my apartment. I'm gazing out on, well, I can actually see a little peak of the East River and a lot of still some fall leaves on the trees, but it's, as Kim and Anne would say, it's cozy here. It's chilly, but cozy. Great to be with you, and welcome, everyone. So, I'm not going to give Eileen a full introduction. I think you all read her bio, but we're really, really delighted to have her and to share a conversation with her and hear her thoughts on forgiveness in this time. It's a social, political, interpersonal mix of many things that are important in this moment. So not being so articulate, but over to you, Eileen. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I just realized I was still muted. Thank you. It's nice to be here. Many of you I have met, but many of you I haven't. So nice to meet you too. And thank you, Kim, for suggesting this, and Annette and Anne for sort of, we kind of brainstormed about what this call might look like several months ago when we didn't know what would be happening really. So here we are in this. It's an interesting moment to kind of, okay, to look at together. The way I really like to begin is to, now that we've gone around and everyone's been introduced, is to just take a breath together to really get present, especially here I'm in the Bay Area across from Kim in Oakland. And, so the day's getting started, but many of you are well into it. So I think it's nice to just get present. So if you'd like to join me, take a breath. If you want, you can close your eyes. And it's just an opportunity to feel your own heart and whatever is true for you. What thoughts, what feelings, especially what feelings are moving in you. We're going to be presumably talking about politics and the election, which I know can really stir the pot. And even though I think that this is a very, sort of amiable group and probably pretty aligned still, we never know. So I'd like to just create a space that's here for all of us to feel what we feel and be able to say whatever you feel is important, and then know that will be received with respect. Okay, take another breath and open your eyes. I know a lot of you went off camera, so if you come back, I'd love that. Great, thank you. So I'm going to talk about, I really don't know what I'm going to say. I've thought about it. I have notes, but I feel really I want to sort of be really present to this. To me, it's complex, what we're talking about here. There's a lot going on in the world. Probably, even if we just focus on the United States, we're definitely in a moment of change. Maybe that's always true, but it feels big right now because we're in a time of unknown. And I think it's important to just say that that's the way I am framing it. Like, we're in the not know. We really don't know. We all have probably our story about what's going to happen next and what it means. And I think that's important to, to have that, we have that. But to me, the underlying frame or story, if you will, is that we don't know. And most of us, and I think, it's human nature that we really are not that comfortable in the unknown. We don't like change. And so it's challenging. I think when I think about the election, and I think the first sort of response to it for a lot of people was, there was a lot of disappointment, frustration, anger, for some people, probably even trauma. It sort of depends on how directly, some people feel more threatened than other people right now. Some people are joyous. Some people feel, oh, finally, we're really on the right track now. And sort of a sense of relief. But I think most people, I don't think that's true for most people. I think most people are sort of in the middle of, let's see what happens. And I think that is actually kind of the wisest place for us to be, because it's the truest place. We can make up, like I said, we can make up stories, but that will cause us to have a lot of anxiety and fear, but they don't necessarily really serve us. So in forgiveness work, and it's in my bio that I've been doing forgiveness teaching for about 25 years in the context of being a mediator. So it's all in the context of conflict resolution, and I've taught to mediators and collaborative professionals, and because I think there's such a place in conflict for forgiveness. It seems really obvious to me, but it doesn't seem to be that obvious to the field of law, which is the one I came out of. A Google search 20 years ago, before I wrote a law review article on forgiveness, revealed no writing at all on the subject of forgiveness except for loan forgiveness. A couple weeks ago, I was about to give a talk to a group of lawyers. I decided to see if anything had changed, and I Googled again. Nothing's changed, except for that if you go down, scroll far enough, you'll find my law review article from Pepperdine. So it's not, there's really hasn't been not big, any place in the law for this conversation. Yet to me, it's so obvious. And I was talking to Stu a little before we started, obvious to him, but probably most of you too. So, but from the perspective of forgiveness, one of the first things that we do, whether we're working on personal forgiveness, and I really think the same applies to collective forgiveness, is to look at the story, because we create these, and I know you know all of this too, but I want to presence it into this conversation. We unconsciously are always creating narratives, and those narratives are very, very powerful, and they will influence and directly how we respond, what we feel, what we think, how we treat other people. Really, really important. So thank you, Nanette. So the first place to me to always look is in the story. What is the story we're telling? And by the way, what I was envisioning is that I would kind of talk a little bit like I'm doing, and then I really I'm hoping for discussion and to hear from people like what, sort of where you're feeling about all of this. But I'd like just to share some of these ideas at the beginning. So I'm hearing, a lot of stories out there about, I'm not even going to, I don't even really want to feed them by repeating them all. I'm sure hearing them too. And then, in forgiveness work, we look deeper at, there's certain kinds of narratives that we create that really are very disempowering and create conflict. And so some of the threads of those kind of narratives are, we create victims, we put ourselves in the role of a victim. We create stories in which we feel powerless. So you can see that, when I look at the stories that, coming out of the news about all these horrible things that are going to happen next, in the Trump administration, that's a lot of what I see. People are scared, and it's closely related to seeing themselves feeling powerless and feeling victimized. And then the sort of twin to that is blaming. And so who do you blame? Right after the election, I just noticed every pundit in the world, it was all about, the blame on the Democrat. This is what they did wrong. This is what they did well. If Kamala did this wrong, Tim Walz, it was all blame. And I suppose it is a common response, but why I'm saying, in a spiritual, if we embrace spirituality, which I'm assuming people here do because this is PISLAP, which is all about integrating spirituality and law and politics. So this is perfect. But in spirituality, it is, and I know that can mean so many things to different people, but I think a common thread is that we see that we kind of step out of the drama, if you will, and we see ourselves as being connected. We see ourselves as being connected to each other and to life force. Again, was talking about the energy of love earlier. that we know that these are the most powerful forces of life. And it's really important in moments like this for us to remember that and stay connected to that and not get sucked into the drama. I'm going to say the drama, the narratives that are really disempowering to people. So I think that for me right now in this moment, it's very important for me that I do my inner work to stay connected and to not get sucked into all of that blame, victimization, but also, and I think the bigger question for me for this conversation is how we can help other people do that. Our communities, the people that we touch, how can we help our communities have a better conversation? So for an example, a conversation that's really about the fact that we really don't know what's going to happen instead of making a whole lot of assumptions. And it's not, and then wait, something I was lost the thought I wanted to say. Staying connected to that possibility, I think, is what will empower us to be able to take the actions that are needed, that are going to come out of a more empowered place rather than a false narrative. And so that's what I think. I think we're in a moment of not knowing, and I think there's a huge opportunity here. And the opportunity I see is for us to learn how to have these really difficult conversations without demonizing people who are disagreeing with each other. And that's sort of what I'm seeing when I listen to the conversation on, it's sort of the two sides. And if you listen to sort of right-wing news, Fox or whatever, it's demonization of the left. If you listen to the left, although they try to be subtle about it, they're not really. It's demonization of the right. And how do we move beyond that and help people hear each other? I'm aware, you probably are too, of many families who are just splintered over the politics right now. A very close friend of mine, not on speaking terms with his father and stepmother because they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum. And I think this is really where we can help people find a way to prioritize their relationship and put all this, in perspective and not let families be fractured in communities. That is really going to be devastating if we allow that to happen. I mean, we may not, it's not that we're allowing it to happen, but that's where I think we can really have impact is by looking to how we can bring people together to have conversations that are on a higher plane. I think I'm going to pause and ask for, people to talk about sort of what you're seeing, what you're feeling. How does this land for you? The idea of sort of shifting the conversation. Yeah.
I just love the way you brought spirit into it and that space that you can be in, that it's a refuge, really. Just the connection, to be able to connect with spirit as a lawyer and do it in a way that's in a way that it can be understood or accepted among other people in the law, to be able to talk about it, I guess.
Yes. It feels really it feels very rare, doesn't it, to be in a group here of not like about, it's not just lawyers, but a lot of lawyers and people interested in law and conflict and talk about spirit and how we can integrate that into what we're doing. What Stu was talking earlier about his community, and it sounds like a really close community, and I'm envious of that. to be honest. Yeah, I think it's really important that we build it. And I think I can't think of a better place than right here in this community, right, Donna?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Looks
Ken?
like Ken. Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you very much. Excuse me. I'm coughing because I am recovering from COVID, which I got for the first time in my life recently. Um, but I'm feeling well. Anyway, um, this is really timely for me along the lines of gratitude, as I have been one of those people who's been dealing with the election in from the point of view of emotional challenge and upset. Although gratitude, I have been looking into the gratitude aspect myself, particularly in the last several weeks. So I'm wondering, not to cut what Kim and Molly and Duncan have to say, but I'm also looking to ask you to say more about what you do, and maybe I could get in touch with you privately about your work. This is something that's really timely for me. And as a retired lawyer with potentially some time on my hands, this is the kind of thing that I'd like to learn more about for some, form of potential involvement on my part.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Marquita, would you do me a favor and put my contact in the chat for me? You could put my email, or, I mean, I can do it at the end, but I'd be happy to talk. I meant to do that at the beginning. I forgot. And I wanted to introduce Marquita to the group. We've been working closely. She graduated from Pepperdine in the Master's in Dispute Resolution a few years ago, and is a forgiveness teacher as well. And we've been working closely together, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Seems like forever, but and so I really wanted her to be here today. Thanks, Marquita. Yeah, I see. Molly. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't see Kim. Kim, I see.
Molly, can you unmute or?
Oh, yeah, I see that Kim's goes up first, so I'm gonna go ahead and let her go first.
Okay, thank you. I see you're right. I missed that at the beginning. Yeah, Kim.
Thank you. I'm in here as a non-lawyer because I work so much in justice as an artist, and I'm part of right now I'm actively involved in working with people who are unhoused, and the shifting of the conversation out of a combative state and towards relationship is something that's very in alignment with the work that I do. I'm always talking about active love. Love is based on justice, and love is always about relationship. And so movement work out of a resistance framework and into a relationship framework is something that's very important to me. And so what you're saying really resonates with that. But one thing I'm struggling with is what about the people who are targeted? And like working with people who are unhoused, they actually wind up targeted by both parties. And but especially the party moving in. And then there are a lot of trans people who are unhoused, and I know other trans people who aren't unhoused, and that's another targeted population. And then the refugee populations. And some of the things that I'm looking at directly, like right now, today, in the work that I'm doing, is what do we need to do to prepare if the worst happens? And so as I'm listening to this conversation, I'm trying to figure out, where is the balance? Where is the balance in being prepared and also saying we don't know? Yeah. And I was just wondering what your insights were on that.
Well, Kim, I just so appreciate what you're saying, because I think about this a lot. And I was doing a little talk yesterday about this, right, talk. And that's exactly what I said. It's like, what I'm saying, I feel is absolutely going to be helpful for those of us who are not on the front lines of feeling targeted, and I do think it's a little bit different if you're trans, if you're, you know, threatened to be deported, if you're, you know, feeling targeted in any way. And I feel like I feel like I'm probably not I mean, I can tell you what I think, but I don't really necessarily think I'm qualified to speak to that, but I do feel qualified to speak to everybody else. But what I mean by that is, like, if someone's in trauma, if they're really you know, in a sort of survival situation, you know, forgiveness isn't necessarily going to be the answer to that or the best, most helpful thing. And I don't know what it is. So I just have to be honest about that. But why I say for everybody else is because I don't mean like, let's just sit around and meditate all the time and not do all the activism and do the things. I'm saying that I think we'll be in a more powerful place to do the things. We'll see it more clearly. For example, so I'm just going to speak to what I know, and I'm going to acknowledge to you, Kim, and everyone that I know that what I'm saying will not be an answer to everything. I know that. And I'm asking those questions too. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I do trust that the more that we access our spirituality, it will give us the answers to the rest of it, as best as possible. That if I stay connected to my spiritual core, okay, like my deepest, highest self, however you want to think about that, that I trust that. I trust that. I mean, I know from my own life experience of decades now on that path that then I will get the information I need. I will get the guidance I need. I'll know when to turn right instead of left. I know this person is the person I need to talk to. The creativity flows, the synchronicity flows. I know that this can sound kind of unrealistic when you're in the throes of something really difficult, but I think this is when we're talking about how do we integrate spirituality into politics and law. I mean, I think this is the task at hand, is figuring this out, is how do we integrate that? But it certainly isn't by ignoring our guidance and leaving that, you know, at home and then going off, you know, see what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying, you know, these are really important resources right now for all of us who care about this. And so this is, I think, on a personal level, self-care. And then it also, I think, in a practical way, does enable us to be where we need to be and meet the people we need to meet so that we'll then be able to help people in the best way. I hope that's helpful. Yeah, and I really, you know, honor the work you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. It's really, really important work.
That's so important, Eileen. It's a lesson I learned from collaborative law, is that we collaborative professionals just hold the highest space we can when we're working with a conflicted couple. We don't try to change them. We just try to send that love to them as we work with the other stuff that helps them look at the details and this kind of stuff. It's like the difference if a mother has two kids, two boys, 4 and 6, and they're fighting all the time. Mother jumps in, so okay, plays the judge. Who did what? No, hold the highest space. Oh, kids, knock it off. Kids say it doesn't work. Kids trying to hook the mom. That's what people do, and everybody needs love. And you don't do it just silent. It's just like, you just love them. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be your own love and stay with that, and things happen.
Thank you, Sue. Duncan, oh, Molly, sorry, we'll have Molly and then Duncan and then Kim. Is that right? Did I get that right? Okay.
Thank you so much for all of the work you're doing and the research that you've done. I'm actually very interested in this field as a law student. I've currently been reading Cultivating Conscience by Lynn Stout. And that kind of goes into the mentality that we have as a society of thinking that people are inherently selfish, but how that's actually an incorrect idea, and how people are actually inherently unselfish and actually much more charitable and forgiving than we give them credit for. I'm also getting my master's in social work, and we're learning this tool about motivational interviewing and how that kind of elicits the conflicting ideas that we might have about something. So I was curious if you had any suggestion as we move forward in these conversations on how to help people recognize that the world isn't necessarily out to get them, or maybe during those difficult times that they have support around them to help them through these transitions.
I think that's exactly right. You know, and people are really going through it, like say, you know, somebody's homeless or they feel like, you know, that they're trans, they don't feel safe, where am I going to go? What, you know, and so forth. It's just, you know, huge for them to not to feel an embrace of love by a community, a sense of belonging, whether, you know, and then whatever else that we can do. I think you're right that's a moment for that. And I love that you're what you're speaking to, Molly, as a law student. It really literally gives me hope just to hear you say that and that you have all of this coming together for you right now in your at this point in your career is so beautiful. Yeah, yeah, my website is in the chat, and if anybody wants to stay in touch, I'll also put my email in, and I'm happy to continue conversations. Thank you for that. Yes, Duncan.
So, welcome and thank you for being here. And I appreciate your perspective about demonization and trying not to blame and demonize others. I'm a psychotherapist mostly. I went to law school a number of years ago, and went into doing couples work and individual psychotherapy. And what I wanted to ask you about, Eileen, is more particularly about forgiveness.
Okay.
I think that there are many people now who feel that what is happening is unforgivable, and that they have a sense of evil, that there are horrible things that are happening, and that forgiveness is not appropriate at this point. Other people have a different point of view about it, but I do think that that's part of what's going on within the American population, is sort of how do we deal with things that we fundamentally find unforgivable. And I think that's a new place for us, to struggle with that. So, you know, my background is in pastoral counseling and therapy and all those, so I hold those values dear, and yet, right, there is a struggle here, particularly with regard to forgiveness, I think. So I'm just wondering if you could address that more particularly.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you have that rich background of those three fields and maybe other more than you haven't mentioned yet, but that's really beautiful, Duncan. So I'm sure you've thought a lot about this too. Well, I think, you know, it's unforgivable is a place that our mind goes when it's sort of really doesn't mean nothing is unforgivable. Nothing is unforgivable. But that is a place, that is a thought that we have when we just feel hopeless or so hurt or so angry that we just don't, it's like be too painful for us to consider keeping our heart open, basically. It's like it's shut down. Maybe, you know, we've really been hurt or something, and we just can't imagine ever moving past that place. But what I was taught a long time ago from Fred Luskin, who's a forgiveness teacher in Stanford, is that it's really a question of feeling motivated. And he explains nothing's unforgivable because for anything that you might say is unforgivable, we could point out somebody who has forgiven it. So I could point to many people who did forgiveness in the face of after, or even in some case, with regard to the Holocaust, people who have forgiven the murder of their children, people who have forgiven, drunk drivers. And, people will tell me I've done a lot of divorce mediation, the affair that's unforgivable, it's very subjective, obviously. It feels that's somebody's pain speaking, basically. So that's just one thing that I think we, as the practitioners or whatever, however you want, we have to remember that they're pain speaking, but it's not really true. And then the other thing for us is I've heard, I think Charles Eisenstein said this, and I really thought it was true, sort of the three crutches that we go to when we're in disagreement are stupid, crazy, and evil. And I myself, during the election, was saying those kinds of things about the other side. They're so stupid. They're so, this is crazy. I don't know that I said evil, but I probably thought evil. I don't know if that's not a word that I would use, but then, I sort of listening to him and I realized that's true. And I'm going to stop doing it because instead of saying that, it's just better. There's better ways to express the disagreement. Rather, that's the demonization, that's the polarization. They're stupid and crazy, and therefore we kind of let ourselves off the hook because we can't do anything because it's impossible. Or, for me, another one, they're narcissists. That's incredible. And it may even be true, but that's just it's kind of a cheat. It's like, okay, but we still need to do our best to build bridges. So I think that for us here, like just getting really talking to each other, as has been mentioned, so that we can kind of solidify that we're not the only crazy person out there who's saying this stuff. We're amongst very wise, experienced, intelligent people, that see it this way, and that we have the strength to hold this when we go out into the field in some way, and to help other people have difficult conversations that they can learn from instead of
Hands are up.
polarizing. What?
People's hands are up.
Okay, am I talking too much?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? All right, Kim.
So I've got a couple of things. I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I raised my hand, and now the conversation's moving. So one is that I went to Thanksgiving with relatives who are on opposite ends of the political spectrum. And I was really not looking forward to that. And I really thought it was going to be horrible. And I went looking for first of all, where can we avoid that conversation because we're not going to agree? And then what do we have in common? And my brother's sort of the one who represents that for me, even though there are other family members. And we had an amazing conversation about things that we share in common. And it felt like my brother hadn't spoken to me, like texted me or anything, and probably since I went to the Women's March, like that long ago. And we sat and talked about composting and solar energy and electric vehicles that he's all into now. And my partner is, teaches sustainability. And so it was actually a pleasant conversation. And now my brother's texting me for recipes. And so that was hopeful. But then on the other hand, we are like, I have been remembering the first administration and remembering it in my body as like getting up in the morning and kind of hesitantly going to the news and seeing what horrible thing has happened. How has somebody I love been harmed and all that. And so one of the things I did, and I'm going to just flash it up here. I created a well-being plan. I have my law students do this. And so I created my own plan. And this is a copy of, this is actually an earlier version I just picked up, but it's like, you know, like put your oxygen mask on first. I think we need to be really careful about our well-being because it's, I remember being sucked in, you know, like the things that were happening were so horrifying to me that I didn't like who I was being about it. And so this is actually an earlier version of my well-being plan. And then, you know, the current version has things like inspiring work. Like I want to feel like I'm doing something to make the world a better place all the time. And so anyway, I offer that as, you know, this is done on Canva. It took me half an hour because I do a lot with Canva, but you know, you don't have to have that if you have your own plan. So I have it as a poster now on my wall, you know, like you know, to remind me, take care of myself, put on my own oxygen mask first. And then I can go into the world and make the kind of difference I can make. And I can't do it all.
Right. That's brilliant. Yeah. That's brilliant, Kim. Is there a way you can like share that with everybody?
Yeah, I can send it
in the chat
to Nanette, or yeah, I could put it in the chat.
No, I think it's really great. But I would just add, this is exactly what I was talking about before. I just didn't have a chart. But for me, the spiritual piece, which is connect to my spiritual core, connect with spirit. And so but yeah, I think that's exactly right. Then we can do what we can do. We can be our best selves. Thanks so much.
So
And
yeah, this one's mine. You know, people were like, "Oh, I'm going to adopt that." I really would prefer people do their own.
Yeah.
You know, that so that it speaks to them. But you know,
that's right. Well, it's a starting place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what happened for you at Thanksgiving, and I think that's also the hope of what's possible is those conversations starting with, you know, I have family members too, and I have to start there, and it's not easy, but that's what's going to shift this, if anything is. Hey, Bruce.
Hi. Thank you, Kim. You're always so helpful. I'd like to go back to what Duncan was saying about we seem to be at a place where people don't want to forgive. They consider certain things unforgivable, and what we do about it. I teach a law school class, and we try to do the loving kindness meditation. And the students don't want to extend compassion to someone they don't like. And you know, these are nice young people. I think a lot of the people they don't like are political figures, and they say it's enabling. They're not interested, or they can't. So, what do you now? You know, I agree with you. Someone has forgiven everything. I mean, I know people who have forgiven incredibly violent, hurtful crimes, and I spent a lot of time in family court also, where I've seen forgiveness. But how do you help people get there?
Yeah, that is really the big question. I've spent my life on that ever since I decided to explore forgiveness is how do you help people? So, you know, I share some thoughts, and Marquita, you might, if you have anything to add, please feel free. I start with the people who, of course, want to forgive because they're suffering so much. There are people who actually self-identify. I'm carrying this around, and it's, you know, as we know, forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. But that's a huge misconception. They don't deserve it, and that lets them off the hook. And that, no, it's for you, so that you don't have to carry around the toxic poison of resentment and damage yourself by carrying that around. But you know, so the low-hanging fruit is the people who, I hate to say it that way, but the people who are suffering enough that they get to a point where they just really want help. And then I think, well, at least let's be able to help them, right? And the people who are like, I'll never do, I mean, everybody is where they are. And I know, Kim, you've helped me understand with the spiral dynamics that people are really at different levels. And that's hard to accept sometimes. I see your hand, still be there in a minute. But just, they may need to be in their anger. They may need to be in that. We can't, you know, I think what can be helpful is to be holding the space and the sign that says there is another option when you're ready, if you're ever ready. But it can't be forced, you know, it's a choice. So I respect that. But I do like to make it available, like in mediation, I let people know. If you want to, you know, explore forgiveness, we can. If you want to talk about that, or, you know, in mediation, I think the more relevant conversation sometimes is acknowledgement of harm and apology, and then forgiveness flows from that. But yeah, I'm working on, that's what I know so far. And sometimes people they're not ready for forgiveness, but they are ready for pieces of it.
What you're really saying is that there's two kinds of forgiveness. There's outside forgiveness, where you're trying to think it, and there's inside forgiveness, where it's coming from love. That's where the difference between the in the Old Testament, the all the things they're supposed to do, 10 commandments. It just coming from thinking doesn't work. It comes from love. It's natural. So it's a shift between thinking and loving. And we think too much, and as lawyers, we think too much.
So that would be the one other piece to that, Bruce, is then I would have compassion for them. For the person who can't have compassion, I would have compassion for them, because that's the way I can extend love, energy, as Stu would say, to them. And then hopefully at some point that'll, you know, help them, and then get closer to the place where they can extend the compassion.
Absolutely. If I may jump in here, this was a beautiful conversation, and I don't know that we can continue this conversation without having a conversation about dignity. You know, I also I've been doing work in forgiveness since about 2011 now, and when I discovered the work of Dr. Donna Hicks, when she incorporates dignity, now dignity has become the foundation of the work that I do, because that's the first place. We have to understand, first of all, what dignity is. And dignity is our birthright. It is not necessarily respect. Respect can be lost and it can be earned. However, dignity, we all have value. Okay, we all are born with value. We're all unique to that. It's all part of our who we are, and we're entitled to that, right? And so when you use dignity as the foundation and the filter for what you're thinking and feeling and needing, then you can hear a little better. When you say, this person has the right to be here, to breathe, right? This person has that birthright. Then when you begin to have these conversations coming from a place of, you know, I see in you what you see in me. You know, I see that. Then that becomes a place where actually that has now become my entry to forgiveness. Because when you can start talking about, it's now my kind of like my entry point. Because sometimes, as you said, we can't talk about forgiveness. Sometimes that word alone is charged. Is the people have a lot of stuff that they hang on to that word. But if you can say something like, can you tell me a time when you felt like your dignity was violated? Or a time when your dignity was honored? Now we have a different conversation here, and we have an entry point to be able to have these larger conversations, because we can all have these places where we can kind of connect to, and we connect on that humanity. So, you know, having the conversation about dignity, I think, is critically important to everything that we do, and that's the foundation to a lot of what I do. And I love what Kim just talked about, because Kim was talking about that self-care. And I do remember as well, and I was thinking about this the other day, because that I guess from a Thanksgiving message came out from our newly elected president coming in, and it was cutting. And what it did for me, it triggered that space that towards the end of that last administration that he was in, I just remember how exhausted I was emotionally for that, because we got sucked into so many of the conversations and the dialogue. It was exhausting by the end of it all. And so when I saw that this time, I thought, that's where the work begins. The work begins in not falling into that. The work begins in ourselves first, because I also do mindfulness work. And sometimes when I do the mindfulness work, I've done mindfulness for people who are doing getting ready to do major facilitations. And the first thing I say as practitioners is that we've got to take care of ourselves. We have to do ourselves, look at the things that are impacting us. And so I think that it's important that we, that we are very, 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 very intentional and very deliberate about what we allow in, what we see, what we know, what we hear, and not to let it become us. Because even reacting to it or responding, Eileen knows my favorite quote is from Viktor Frankl. That's between stillness and response, there is a space. And this is the space that we're in. We're in that space. And that space is our opportunity to make a choice. And that's where our growth and our freedom lies, right? And so when you sit in that space and you employ dignity, when you sit in that space and you don't take the bait, when you sit in that space, right? And you take a beat. What else could this mean? What else is going on? As Eileen talked about so eloquently, is about the story that we tell ourselves. But when you sit in that space and listen with dignity, listen for something different, guess what? You hear something different, because what is it? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so this is an opportunity for us. We are, as practitioners, this is our time. What I think the election has done for me is it just put the biggest spotlight on where the work needs to be done. It's a spotlight. We see it. We know it. It's clear. There's a lot that needs to be done. And so it's an opportunity. And we have been prepared for this time, right? Because I believe that each of us are a divine necessity with a heroic mission and a grand purpose. We have been prepared for this moment. And so we have the skills, we have the ability, we've got that, and so it's just an exciting moment. It's scary, it's all of those things, but it's an opportunity too. I see that as an opportunity as well. So yeah,
Thank you, Marquita. Beautiful. Somebody had their hand up. Maybe she had to go. Kara, Lisa.
No, Kara's here.
Kara.
Oh, that's okay. I just put it in the chat. So I've said that was so beautifully said. Yes, I think focusing on dignity and the relationship. And I was just going to offer to Bruce, sometimes starting with more of the just like me meditation to see that.
I've done that one too. Just like me.
Before the love and kindness, but I can't say anything better than what was just said. So
I love what's been said, and I especially love the phrase, "This is our time." I think this is our time. I think we are uniquely positioned in this time to do something nobody else can do. I do think we need to hone our skills a little more, and we could spend more time on this. I've been working on this, but I don't want to take more time. So thank you for your thoughts.
Well, I think this is, yes, and it's just that I think we could agree there's nothing really more important that we do right now than to do what we can to really take this moment and its full opportunity. So yeah, thank you so much. Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you. I've just been listening and absorbing and really feel inspired and supported. And I have a few disconnected comments, but threading in what other people are saying. In the first, Duncan already posted it, but my work in transitional justice understands forgiveness as not meaning lack of accountability, and that it's often for the survivors to shift out of their pain and their feeling of victimhood, and it's something that they decide to do. It can't be imposed, but there's still accountability there. It's not forgiving the act. The other thing that I wanted to mention in terms of students, because I also teach students, and I was one of the only professors who addressed post-elections, and I really struggled to find a way to do it to not alienate some of my students. I have no idea what their political affiliation is, but I assumed I have a mixed body And what I led with is what I do, which is human rights, and just piggybacking off of the idea of dignity and humanness, and that we're all humans, and how we talk to each other should come from that place. And I was just asked to be an advanced reader of Loretta Ross's book, Calling In, which has been extremely helpful in thinking about how do just, the preparation of how we do this work, the techniques of how to call people in as opposed to calling them out and canceling them. So I spent some time on that with my students because I was learning from them a lot of division was occurring. And what really moved me, because I went out on a limb on this because I'm just not in a supportive environment to do more than that, is how many students thanked me and came to me or wrote me just because I said 3 minutes of how to do this. And so I do think there's a great desire from especially young people for this guidance and permission to take this path as opposed to the path of anger and division. And they want that guidance. So I do think the next step is figuring out the techniques of how to do this and give people that guidance. So thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, where do you teach?
I teach at New England Law School in Boston.
Okay, wonderful. Well, this is exciting. I love this conversation. Thank you so much. Nanette.
Yes, thank you, Eileen, and I've appreciated everyone's thoughts, and just another maybe slightly different wording or lens to add, which is I think for me, in this moment, maintaining a posture of activism and not disengaging and feeling hopeless is really important. So, so many folks talk about that I've spoken to just wanting to disconnect from the social political realm right now and just and being self-protective in that way because they feel so upset and alienated by it. But so I do think that in a sense it's an act of well, I'm not sure how to characterize it, but I think trying to maintain a posture of activism feels like a way of maintaining connection, even at a time when one feels, as so many others said, a sense that, what's contemplated isn't forgivable or doesn't feel forgivable. I guess the other thing I was thinking was that I think the balance and I think PISLAP embodies this in a way as well, of maintaining both a critical analytic eye towards what's happening, but also an open-hearted, non-blaming posture towards those who may have gone in a different direction. I think that's the balance I try to achieve. So I think acting in a way that or presenting oneself in a way that manifests some spiritual sense, some sense of forgiveness does not in any way mean that we give up our critical analytic eye and our way of understanding what's happening and our sharpness, but it does mean having an open heart and continuing that. So anyway, just a maybe slightly different way of saying what others have, but just
That's
wanted to add that.
so important. Yeah, that is really important. I wanted to make a couple other comments, and I think we're about needing to end, correct?
Yeah, just about, yeah, a little bit.
And it kind of tags on to what you just said, Nanette, but I think that the key to me out of this conversation is not really forgiveness, it's humanizing. It's staying connected and seeing the humanity of each person, and as Nikita is saying, the value, the dignity, but it's human, not allowing anybody to be dehumanized, including the people on the other side that we really have a hard time with. And not allowing ourselves to be divided, whether it's at our family table or our neighbors who see, but not allowing that division, saying these relationships and connections are more important to me than these thoughts, and then we can talk about them. I think to refuse to be divided is almost subversive, because I think there are powerful forces that want us to be divided. I don't think it's an accident that we're being divided. I think this is people really there are people who benefit a lot when we, are in division. And it's interesting how it always stays kind of 49-51, that's a good contest, right? And so refusing to play that game and insisting on staying connected through our humanity, I think is really, really important, and finding the bridges. Because if we stay connected, I think that's going to be our path out of it, to be honest. And I don't think it's about giving up at all. I think it's about playing, I'm going to say playing a different game, in a sense, shifting the perspective and seeing something that's more powerful than just being a pawn in somebody else's game where we fight each other. And I just really want to honor each one of you. I'm so inspired to hear that, those of you who are teaching and helping in communities and counseling and doing your practices and keeping your hearts open at this time, and being, taking a stand for that is just really, really inspiring to me. Thank you. And the only other thing is that if there's a way to keep this conversation going, I would love to do that, because I think it's important. Somebody said, I feel all alone and I'm the only one, but Lisa, well, I'll give it the three minutes. I'll sneak it in there, but I want, you're not alone, and there's all of us like with you. That's important to fortify yourself. I even found it scary to say what I said earlier. And then it's like so relieving, and people say, oh, that really resonates. But it's like, people don't usually talk about these things. And I think we really need each other. We need support, because we are pioneers. But like Marquita said, this is our moment. We've been trained for this, and we're ready to step into it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Eileen. This was wonderful and much appreciated, and I think needed as well. So thank you, everyone, for being a part of this conversation. And we have a lot coming up. Oh, Bruce, do you want to say a quick word about the CLE that's coming up before we hang up? Bruce is mute. Bruce, we can't hear you. Bruce, you're muted. He can't hear. Oh, okay.
Nanette, is it possible to get a copy of the chat? I haven't been able to read it, but I'd like to see what people.
Oh, sure.
I got it. I got it, Nanette.
Okay.
Some of us, Kim is gone now, but some of us also from PISLAP are doing a nationwide CLE on January 14th at 12 o'clock Eastern time. It's kind of a unique thing. It's practicing holistic humanistic law, and it's a big national CLE provider. They said they've never done anything quite like this before. So I assume, Nanette, I sent you some material today. I assume we'll get that out to everybody, and we'd love to see you.
Yes, we'll do. Actually, I'm going to put the link in the chat just before folks hang up. If you want to just get an advance.
Thank
Let me
you,
see if I
Nanette.
can do that really, really quickly before you all hang up, because we may, not everybody here is on our list.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm on it.
Yeah, if anybody is not on the list, if you could drop me a line, and I'm very happy to add you. Okay, here comes the link to sign up for the CLE, which we're very excited about. It's our first PISLAP national CLE. So, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again, Eileen, and everyone. Be well. Best wishes for the end of the year, and we'll be together in the new year. We have talks coming up we have a talk with Michelle Leering on contemplative lawyering, a 2-part series coming up end of January, beginning of February. And of course, we have the CLE, which is very modestly priced. So check it out. And you don't have to be a lawyer to sign up at all. It's just if you don't need the legal education credit, then you wouldn't need the CLE. But it'll be a wonderful presentation. All right. Be well, everyone.